The Vanishing Hitchhiker. It was one of those nights where the road seemed endless and the darkness felt like it was closing in on me. I was driving down a deserted highway, the moon casting eerie shadows as my headlights cut through the inky blackness. Just as I was starting to relax to the sound of my favorite tunes, I spotted a lone hitchhiker standing by the side of the road, thumbing a ride. Now I could almost hear my mom's voice in my head warning me about picking up strangers. But there was something about her that seemed harmless. No chainsaws or creepy masks in sight. So feeling a bit adventurous, I decided to stop. I pulled over, the gravel crunching under my tires, and rolled down my window. The hitchhiker, a young woman dressed in old-fashioned clothes, approached my car. She looked relieved, but there was a certain sadness in her eyes that piqued my curiosity. "Need a ride?" "Hop in." "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just down the road a bit to the old farmhouse." "It's a little spooky, but it's home," she replied with a small smile. I nodded and unlocked the passenger door, feeling like a bit of a hero. As she settled in, I couldn't help but start a conversation. After all, if I was going to break all the rules, I might as well be friendly about it. "So, what brings you out here so late?" I inquired. "I was at a party, but it ended earlier than expected." "Funny how life takes unexpected turns, right?" she said, her voice soft and distant. We chatted for a while, and before I knew it, we reached the old farmhouse she mentioned. It loomed dark and silent against the night sky. "Here we are!" "Safe and sound," I said, turning to her. But to my shock, the passenger seat was empty. The hitchhiker had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a faint chill in the air and an unsettling feeling in my gut. Panic set in as I looked around, thinking maybe she was playing a prank. Then it hit me. The urban legend about the vanishing hitchhiker. The ghost of a girl who died on this very road, eternally trying to get home. I had picked up a ghost. The Hookhanded Man. Driving to a secluded spot for a romantic date night seemed like a brilliant idea at first. The stars were out, the moon was full, and the air was filled with the soft chirping of crickets. My partner and I parked at a scenic overlook, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Everything was perfect. Until the radio interrupted our cozy moment with a news bulletin about an escaped convict with a hook for a hand. I laughed it off, trying to keep the mood light. "Probably just a story to scare people," I said, though I couldn't help but glance around nervously. My partner wasn't convinced. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes wide with alarm. I listened closely, but all I could hear were the usual night sounds. "It's nothing," I assured her, but inside, my imagination was running wild. Suddenly, there was a loud thump on the car roof. We both jumped, hearts racing. "Okay, maybe we should leave," I suggested, trying to sound calm. We quickly started the car and sped off, every shadow seeming more menacing than the last. When we finally reached her house, we both sighed with relief. But as she got out, her scream shattered the silence. I rushed to her side and saw it, a rusty hook hanging from the car door handle. I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Guess he wasn't just a story after all," I muttered, trying to process what just happened. The Hook-Handed Man is one of those urban legends that makes you second-guess every sound you hear when you're alone. Did we narrowly escape a real-life horror story, or was it just an elaborate prank? Either way, I was done with secluded spots for a while. Bloody Mary. Everyone's heard the story of Bloody Mary, right? It's the classic sleepover dare, whispered among friends as the ultimate test of courage. We were no different. A group of fearless, or so we claimed, teenagers gathered in a dimly lit room, eager to prove our bravery. It was late, the perfect time for spooky stories. The air was thick with anticipation as one of my friends suggested the infamous Bloody Mary challenge. "You have to say her name 3 times in front of a mirror," he explained, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "If you're lucky, she'll appear. If you're not, well, let's not think about that." Naturally, we all laughed it off. "Piece of cake," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. But when it was my turn to face the mirror, my heart pounded like a drum solo gone rogue. The bathroom was dark, illuminated only by the flickering candlelight. I stood in front of the mirror, my reflection staring back at me with equal parts defiance and fear. "Bloody Mary," I whispered, feeling a chill run down my spine. "Bloody Mary," I repeated, the air growing colder. "Bloody Mary," I said one last time, my voice barely a whisper. For a moment, nothing happened. I started to laugh, relief washing over me. "See? Just a silly story," I said, turning to leave. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. A pale figure with hollow eyes and long, dark hair, staring back at me from the mirror. I froze, my laughter dying in my throat. The figure reached out, her fingers pressing against the glass, and I did what any self-respecting teenager would do. I screamed and bolted out of the bathroom. My friends were in hysterics, thinking I was pulling a prank. "Nice try," one of them said, clapping me on the back. But I knew what I saw, and I wasn't about to go back in there to prove it. We eventually settled down, the mood lightening with jokes and snacks. But every now and then, I'd catch a glimpse of the bathroom mirror and feel that same chill. Whether it was my imagination or something more sinister, I couldn't say. But one thing was for sure. I wasn't eager to try the Bloody Mary challenge again. The killer in the back seat. Driving home late at night can be a serene experience. The roads are quiet, the stars are out, and it's just you and your thoughts. That is, until you realize you might not be alone. I was heading home after a long day, my eyes heavy and my mind wandering, when I noticed a car behind me, flashing its headlights. At first I thought they were just trying to pass, so I sped up a bit. But so did they. I slowed down and they matched my speed. My heartbeat quickened, and a dozen scenarios ran through my mind, none of them good. Was this some kind of road rage? A prank? Or something much worse? I took a deep breath and decided to keep driving towards a well-lit area, just in case. The car kept following, their headlights now an ominous presence in my rearview mirror. Every twist and turn I made, they followed, never losing sight of me. It felt like a scene straight out of a thriller movie. Finally, I reached a gas station and pulled in, the fluorescent lights a welcome relief. The car pulled in behind me, and a large man got out, rushing towards me. My heart was in my throat as I scrambled to lock my doors. He reached my window, his face a mix of urgency and concern. "There's someone in your back seat!" he shouted, his voice muffled through the glass. For a second, I froze. Then, with trembling hands, I turned to look. Sure enough, there was a dark figure lurking in the shadows of my back seat. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my phone to call the police. The stranger outside stayed with me, making sure the person in the back seat didn't move. The police arrived within minutes, and they apprehended the intruder, a man who had snuck into my car while I was parked at my last stop. The stranger who had followed me had noticed the figure slipping into my back seat and had been trying to warn me the whole time. The haunted hotel room. Checking into a hotel after a long day of travel can feel like a blessing. A cozy bed, a hot shower, and a chance to relax. But what if your room comes with an uninvited guest? I had just finished a grueling business trip and was looking forward to a good night's sleep when I checked into a quaint, historic hotel. The kind of place that oozes charm and whispers secrets from its past. I got my key and headed to my room on the top floor. The elevator creaked and groaned as it ascended, adding to the eerie ambiance. When I stepped into my room, I was greeted by an odd, musty smell. The decor was charmingly old-fashioned with heavy drapes and antique furniture. It felt like stepping back in time. After a quick shower, I settled into bed with a book, trying to unwind. But the tranquility was short-lived. Strange noises started coming from the room above. Footsteps, faint whispers, and the occasional thud. I brushed it off at first, assuming it was just other guests settling in. But when the noises continued well past midnight, I began to feel uneasy. I called the front desk to inquire about the room above mine. The receptionist hesitated before answering. "Sir, there is no room above yours. You're on the top floor." A chill ran down my spine. I tried to laugh it off, convincing myself that it was just old pipes or my imagination playing tricks on me. But the noises persisted, growing louder and more distinct. At one point, it sounded like someone was dragging something heavy across the floor. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I grabbed my flashlight and ventured into the hallway. The hotel was eerily quiet, and the flickering lights did little to calm my nerves. I climbed the stairs to the supposedly non-existent floor, each step echoing in the silence. When I reached the top, there was no door, no room, just an empty space where the sounds had been emanating. I felt a cold draft and an overwhelming sense of unease. I quickly retreated back to my room, locking the door behind me. Sleep was out of the question. I spent the rest of the night wide awake, every creak and groan of the building amplifying my paranoia. As soon as the first light of dawn broke through the curtains, I packed my bags and checked out, barely glancing at the receptionist as I handed over my key. Later, I found out that the hotel had a history of paranormal activity. Guests had reported similar experiences, unexplained noises, cold spots, and even sightings of ghostly figures. It turned out my charming hotel had a rather haunted past. The call is coming from inside the house. Babysitting was supposed to be easy money. Play with the kids, put them to bed, and then chill on the couch with some snacks and a good movie. At least, that's what I thought when I agreed to babysit for the Johnsons. Their house was nice, the kids were well behaved, and the pay was decent. What could go wrong? The evening started off smoothly. We played some games, watched a bit of TV, and I put the kids to bed without a hitch. With the kids asleep, I settled into the living room, scrolling through my phone and enjoying the peace and quiet. That's when the phone rang. I answered it, expecting to hear Mrs. Johnson checking in. Instead, there was a raspy voice on the other end. "Have you checked the children?" the voice asked, sending a chill down my spine. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a prank call. "Very funny," I said, and hung up. But a few minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, the voice was more insistent. "Have you checked the children?" I hung up quickly and decided to go upstairs and check on the kids just to be safe. They were sound asleep, oblivious to the creepy calls. I returned to the living room, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. When the phone rang a third time, I ignored it, hoping the caller would give up. But the ringing continued, relentless. I finally picked up, my hands trembling. Who is this? What do you want? There was a long pause, and then the voice said, I'm closer than you think. My heart pounded as I slammed the phone down. I immediately called the police, explaining the situation as calmly as I could, though my voice was shaking. Stay calm, the dispatcher said. We're tracing the call now. Stay on the line. The seconds felt like hours as I waited, every creak of the house making me jump. Finally, the dispatcher came back on the line. Get out of the house, now! The call is coming from inside the house. Panic set in. I raced upstairs, grabbed the kids, and ran out the front door just as the police arrived. They searched the house and found a man hiding in the attic, phone in hand. He had been watching us the entire time, waiting for the right moment. The Johnsons were horrified when they returned home and heard what had happened. They thanked me for keeping their children safe, but I was done with babysitting for a while. That night taught me that even the safest situations can turn dangerous in an instant.